My wife wore the anniversary dress I bought her to spit on my face while I lay in a coma. When I finally opened my eyes, she squeezed my hand and whispered, "You don't remember anything, do you?" I squeezed back. That was 21 days ago. This morning, she was screaming at a cop as they took off my father's watch. I was on my way to work when I crashed into a pole and fell into a Diong coma. At the hospital, the nurses told my wife and brother that I may never wake up again. What they didn't know was that I was conscious the whole time, trapped screaming in the prison of my own skull. The moment the doctor left, Vanessa dropped my hand like it was rotting meat. She wiped her palm on her dress, and I knew from the sound of leather that it was the one I'd bought for our anniversary. My chest started burning when Terrence moved behind her, the sound of their laughter completely intertwined. 8 years of this, she said. 8 years. The words hit like ice water, flooding my veins. My brother's hand kissed her neck, and suddenly, every late night he'd stayed over made sense. Every business trip where he'd volunteered to check on her. My jaw wanted to clench, but remained slack, useless. The bed shifted as Vanessa sat down hard, her hip digging into my ribs. "You know what the worst part is?" Her voice was closer now, breath hot against my ear. "He actually thinks I love him. He brings me flowers every Friday like clockwork." Something metal scraped against the bed rail. Her wedding ring. Vanessa walked to my bedside and studied my face. Her finger poked my cheek, nail digging in. No response. She poked harder, leaving a crescent moon indent in flesh that couldn't flinch. The casual cruelty of it made my trapped mind howl. "Gosh, looking at him makes me sick," she spat. I felt the warm wetness hit my cheek, slide down toward my ear. Terrence picked up my chart and tossed it onto my legs. Papers scattered across my dead-weight limbs. Neither bothered to collect them. I felt my father's Rolex unstrap from my wrist. He held it up, admiring the weight. Dad had worn it through 30 years of construction work, left it to me on his deathbed. Now Terrence fastened it onto his own wrist like he was trying on a dead man's shoes. "Remember when he showed us this?" Terrence's voice was casual, like discussing weather. Said it would be mine when he died. Guess he was right. Vanessa found my wallet. She laid out the contents on my chest. Credit cards, business cards, photos, like I was a table at a garage sale. The black AMX disappeared into her purse. Our honeymoon photo got special attention. Her nail scraped down the middle before she tore it precisely in half. They ordered Chinese food, my favorite restaurant, the one where we'd had our first date. The containers sat on my legs while they ate, discussing my funeral between bites. Sauce dripped onto my hospital gown. Vanessa's chopsticks clicked against her teeth, a sound that used to drive me crazy. Now I couldn't even W's. My phone lay in the bedside drawer. Terrence grabbed my thumb, bent it back to unlock the screen. The joint pulled wrong, but I couldn't cry out. He scrolled through my accounts while my thumb throbbed. Vanessa leaned over to look, her hair brushing my face. $2 million in Bitcoin, Terrence exclaimed, showing her the screen. My mother called. Then, Vanessa answered while sitting on my bed, her weight making it hard to breathe through the ventilator. She played the grieving wife perfectly, even produced tears. After hanging up, she wiped them away with disgust. "Your mother never liked me," she said. "Always thought I wasn't good enough for her precious baby boy." She grabbed my hand and squeezed hard, nails digging into my palm. If only she knew her other son has been Quan Han me since before the wedding. My mind raced through every moment I'd missed. The way they danced too close at our wedding, how she'd insisted Terrence become my business partner. Late nights at the office that lined up too perfectly. Terrence stood at the foot of my bed practicing something. His stance, his gestures, I recognized them. My eulogy. He was rehearsing my eulogy while I breathed 6 feet away. Occasionally, I'd feel him glance at me, adjusting his delivery. My own brother measuring me for a coffin. Time crawled. They made calls to lawyers, to accountants. My company dissected name by name. Employees who'd been with me for years were added to a termination list. Vanessa used my chest as a desk for taking notes. each letter pressed through paper into flesh that couldn't protest. They grew bolder as night fell. Vanessa practiced crying in the bathroom mirror. Door open. Different versions of grief, like trying on clothes. Terrence counted my possessions. Watches, cufflinks, the signed baseball from Dad. Every muscle screamed to move, to rage, to grab them by their lying throats. That's when the miracle fought through the medication. My index finger twitched. Just once, just enough. Vanessa saw it. The nail polish bottle slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Red spread across white tile like blood. They stood frozen, watching my hand like a bomb about to explode. My finger moved again. "No," Vanessa whispered. "No, no, 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 no." My eyes opened. Not fully, not easily, but they opened and locked onto theirs. The sound of breaking glass echoed in the room. Red nail polish spread across the floor like spilled blood. And for a moment, nobody moved. My eyes stayed locked on theirs, watching the color drain from their faces. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth. She took a step backward, her heel crunching on glass shards. Terrence grabbed the bed rail, his knuckles white against the metal. The Rolex on his wrist caught the fluorescent light. My throat burned around the ventilator tube. Every muscle in my body screamed to move, to rise up and confront them, but only my finger responded. Another twitch, then another. The small movement felt like climbing a mountain. The door burst open. A nurse rushed in, drawn by the sound of breaking glass. She saw my open eyes and gasped immediately, checking the monitors. Her hands moved efficiently, checking pupils, pressing buttons, calling for the doctor. Vanessa and Terrence stepped back, trying to compose themselves. Dr. Gerard arrived within minutes. He shone a light in my eyes, asked me to blink once for yes, twice for no. Could I hear him? One blink. Did I know where I was? One blink. Was I in pain? 2 blinks, though. That was a lie. The pain wasn't physical. The ventilator came out slowly. My throat felt raw, torn. The first breath on my own was agony. Then the second came easier. By the third, I was breathing steadily, though each inhale reminded me of the weight that had pressed on my chest. Vanessa rushed to my side, tears streaming down her face. Her performance was flawless. She grabbed my hand, the same one she'd dropped like garbage hours ago. Her wedding ring pressed cold against my skin. Behind her, Terrence adjusted Dad's watch nervously. The doctor explained my miraculous recovery. Medical terms floating over my head: traumatic brain injury, medically induced coma. Lucky to be alive, he recommended keeping me for observation, running more tests. Through it all, I kept my responses minimal. Nods, single words. Let them think the coma had left me weak, confused. My voice came out as a whisper when I finally spoke. Just my wife's name. She leaned in close and I smelled the Chinese food on her breath. Her hand squeezed mine harder, a warning disguised as affection. I squeezed back just enough to let her know I had strength returning. The nurse cleaned up the nail polish while explaining visiting hours were almost over. Vanessa protested, playing the devoted wife, but hospital policy was firm. She kissed my forehead before leaving, lips cold against my skin. Terrence patted my shoulder, brotherly concern painted on his face. The door closed behind them, alone with the medical staff. I answered their questions carefully. My name, the year, the president, basic math. I made small errors, nothing dramatic, enough to seem impaired, but recovering. The neurologist ordered an MRI for the morning, warned me about potential memory issues. I nodded, understanding more than I let on. Night fell. A different nurse checked on me hourly, adjusting IV drips, monitoring vitals. Between visits, I tested my body, fingers first, then hands. My arms responded slowly, muscles weak from even one day of stillness. My legs barely moved. The left one tingled with pins and needles. The right felt dead below the knee. I thought about the Bitcoin wallet. 2 million. The password was a combination of our anniversary date and the street where we'd first kissed. Terrence had my phone, but he'd need more than my thumb to access the wallet. The thought gave me grim satisfaction. Morning brought new challenges. The physical therapist arrived early, a woman named Maria who didn't waste time with sympathy. She helped me sit up, the room spinning violently. My stomach churned. She held a basin while I dry heaved. Nothing in my stomach to bring up. Standing was impossible. My legs buckled immediately. Maria caught me, eased me back to bed. She explained about muscle atrophy, about the hard work ahead. I listened, nodding, while my mind worked on other problems. How much had they already taken? What could I still save? Vanessa arrived with flowers, roses, not the daisies I usually brought her. She'd changed into a conservative dress, playing the grieving wife who'd gotten her miracle. She helped me sip water, adjusted my pillows, performed for the nurses. When we were alone, her mask slipped. She leaned close, pretending to kiss my cheek. Her whisper was sharp. "You don't remember anything, do you?" The accident scrambled your brain. It wasn't a question. It was an instruction. I let my eyes go unfocused, mumbled something incoherent. She relaxed slightly. Her phone buzzed. A text from Terrence, probably. She typed a quick response and I caught a glimpse of the screen. Something about meeting with lawyers that afternoon. The neurologist returned with test results. The MRI showed bruising, swelling. He used terms like cognitive impairment and memory gaps. Talk about your worst nightmare coming true. Trapped in your own body while your wife and brother plan your funeral menu over Chinese takeout on your legs. I played into it, asking him to repeat things, looking confused at simple questions. Vanessa took notes, the concerned wife gathering information. Physical therapy continued throughout the day. Maria pushed hard, but my progress was genuinely slow. My left leg responded better than the right. I could wiggle my toes, flex my ankle. The right leg remained stubbornly weak. Maria mentioned possible nerve damage, promised we'd work on it. Between sessions, I dozed fitfully. Hospital sounds kept me on edge. Every footstep might be Vanessa or Terrence returning. Every conversation in the hallway might be about me. The paranoia was exhausting, but I couldn't afford to truly sleep. Not yet. That evening, my mother arrived. Vanessa had clearly coached her, prepared her for my condition. Mom's eyes were red with tears as she held my hand, told me how scared she'd been. I wanted to tell her everything, but Vanessa hovered nearby, watching every interaction. Mom talked about the business, how Terrence was handling things. My employees had sent a card. She'd brought it along with some personal items from home. Vanessa intercepted the bag, checking the contents. Just clothes, toiletries, nothing useful. Visiting hours ended again. Mom kissed my forehead, promised to return tomorrow. Vanessa made a show of wanting to stay, but the nurses remained firm. She left with Mom, arm in arm, the perfect daughter-in-law. I watched them go, noting how Vanessa's posture changed the moment they passed the doorway. Night brought time to think, to plan. My body was weak, but my mind was sharp. They thought they'd won, thought the coma had conveniently erased their betrayal, but I remembered everything, every word, every cruel laugh, every detail of their plan. The next days would be critical. I needed to maintain the act while regaining strength. Let them get comfortable, make mistakes. The Bitcoin was safe for now, but I worried about the business, about my employees, about what else they might steal while I played invalid. A new nurse came for the midnight check. She was young, chatty, mentioned how lucky I was to have such a devoted wife and brother, how they'd barely left my side during the coma. I smiled weakly, played along, let her believe the fiction. My legs tingled constantly now. The feeling was returning slowly. Pins and needles that meant healing. I flexed my feet under the blankets. Small movements the monitors wouldn't catch. Tomorrow, Maria would push harder. I'd push back, but not too much. Show progress, but not too fast. The hospital room felt like another prison, but this one I could eventually leave. Unlike the cage of my skull, this had an exit strategy. I just needed time. Time to heal. Time to plan. Time to let them reveal more of their hand. I thought about the house, our joint accounts, the business I'd built from nothing. How much had they already taken? How much more would they try to steal? The fury burned cold in my chest, but I kept my breathing steady. The monitors would alert the nurses to any distress. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more therapy, more tests, more performances from Vanessa and Terrence. I'd play my part, the brain-damaged victims slowly recovering. Let them think they were safe. Let them get sloppy because I was awake now, really awake. And they had no idea what that meant. The rehabilitation schedule became my cover. Each morning, Maria arrived at 7 sharp, clipboard in hand, ready to push my limits. I let her guide me through exercises while secretly testing my real capabilities. My left leg could bear weight now, though I made sure to wobble dramatically whenever she watched. The right leg presented genuine challenges, nerve damage making control unpredictable. Vanessa arrived during my second therapy session, carrying a briefcase I recognized from my home office. She waited until Maria stepped out to gather equipment, then opened it on the bedside table. Legal documents spilled out. Power of attorney forms, bank authorization papers, asset transfer agreements. Her fingers moved through them efficiently, organizing them into neat piles. She pressed a pen into my weak hand, guiding it to the signature line. I let my grip fail, the pen rolling onto the sheets. She retrieved it patiently, repositioned my fingers. My signature came out shaky, barely legible. She frowned at the result, but moved to the next document. Each form required multiple attempts, my hand conveniently spasming at crucial moments. Maria returned with resistance bands. Vanessa quickly gathered the papers, mentioning something about insurance forms to the therapist. Maria nodded sympathetically, focused on attaching the bands to my ankles. The exercises resumed while Vanessa watched from her chair, briefcase balanced on her lap, calculating how many signatures she still needed. Dr. Gerard scheduled cognitive testing for that afternoon. A psychologist arrived with puzzles, memory cards, basic problem-solving tasks. I deliberately failed half of them, mixing up sequences, forgetting simple patterns. The woman made notes continuously, occasionally glancing at Vanessa with professional sympathy. Brain damage, her expression suggested, significant impairment. Terrence appeared as the testing concluded. He wore my father's watch prominently, checking it repeatedly as if establishing ownership. He brought flowers for the nurse's station, playing the devoted brother. The staff cooped over his thoughtfulness while he studied my test results over the psychologist's shoulder. They huddled in the corner afterward, voices low but not low enough. The words permanent disability and care facility drifted across the room. Vanessa showed him the signatures she'd collected. He examined them critically, pointing out flaws, suggesting they needed cleaner versions for the lawyers. Physical therapy resumed the next morning. Maria introduced a walker, helping me stand with most of my weight supported by the metal frame. My legs shook genuinely from the effort, muscles screaming after days of inactivity. She guided me 3 steps from the bed before my right knee buckled. The collapse was real, though I exaggerated the difficulty of recovery. Vanessa arrived earlier now, catching the end of therapy sessions. She watched my struggles with calculating eyes, timing how long each exercise took, noting every stumble. When Maria mentioned potential transfer to a rehabilitation facility, Vanessa perked up noticeably. She asked about locations, durations, visiting policies. Maria provided brochures, unaware she was helping plan my removal from the hospital's protective environment. The occupational therapist introduced new challenges. Simple tasks like buttoning a shirt or holding a cup became performance opportunities. I fumbled with buttons, let cups slip from seemingly nerveless fingers. The therapist remained encouraging, adjusting goals downward, simplifying tasks. Vanessa took photos during these sessions, documenting my apparent helplessness. Mom visited again, bringing homemade soup. She insisted on feeding me herself. Her hands shook as she raised the spoon to my lips. I wanted to grab her, explain everything, but Vanessa sat inches away, monitoring every interaction. Mom mentioned the business, how grateful she was that Terrence had stepped up. Several key clients had already been contacted about the transition in leadership. Night brought solitude and secret practice. I waited for the hourly nurse checks, then tested my real capabilities between visits. Standing came easier now, though the right leg remained unreliable. I could take 10 steps holding the bed rail, 15 on good attempts. My hands worked normally when unobserved, fingers strong and steady. The act was becoming second nature, but maintaining it exhausted me. Vanessa brought a tablet the next day, propping it on the bedside table. She opened email after email, holding my finger to the screen for authorizations, employee termination approvals, account access changes, vendor contract modifications. I let my finger slide off target repeatedly, triggering error messages, forcing her to restart each process. The business was hemorrhaging under their management. Through the emails, I glimpsed termination notices for my most loyal employees, contract cancellations with longtime partners, asset liquidation authorizations, 20 years of building destroyed in days. The fury threatened to break through my act, but I channeled it into seemingly random muscle spasms that conveniently disrupted her document review. Dr. Gerard ordered another MRI to track improvement. The results showed minimal change, swelling still present, neural pathways compromised. He discussed options with Vanessa and Terrence in hushed tones: long-term care facilities, specialized rehabilitation centers, places where visiting hours were restricted, where they could control access completely. Maria pushed harder during therapy. Frustrated by my apparent plateau, she introduced parallel bars, supporting most of my weight while I dragged my feet forward. The right leg caught on nothing, sending me sideways into the bars. The impact jarred my ribs where Vanessa had pressed during the coma. I gasped, playing up the pain, letting tears form naturally from the genuine discomfort. Terrence started handling my phone openly now, no longer bothering with my thumb for access. He'd somehow bypassed the security, probably through our shared business accounts. I watched him scroll through contacts, making notes about clients, suppliers, banking relationships. Occasionally, he would glance at me, checking if I showed any recognition. I kept my expression blank, eyes unfocused. The speech therapist arrived for evaluation. I slurred responses, mixed up words, forgot common terms. She worked patiently through exercises while Vanessa filmed everything on her phone. Evidence, I realized, building a case for permanent incapacity. This is incredible strategy work, the way he's playing up his weakness while secretly testing his real strength between nurse visits shows such smart thinking. The therapist mentioned the possibility of recovering speech with intensive therapy. Vanessa's frown suggested that wasn't part of their plan. Mom brought photo albums on her next visit, hoping familiar images might spark memory improvement. Pictures of Dad filled the pages, him teaching me to use tools, building the business together, passing down the watch that now decorated Taryn's wrist. Mom's voice cracked, describing each photo while Vanessa performed sympathy beside her, rubbing her back with false comfort. The rehabilitation facility brochures multiplied on my bedside table. Vanessa and Terrence compared amenities, costs, locations. They favored places at least 2 hours from the city, citing the peaceful environment for recovery. I recognized the strategy. Isolation, limited access, easier to control the narrative of my condition. Physical therapy hit a deliberate wall. I'd mastered appearing weak while maintaining hidden strength, but Maria was growing concerned about the lack of progress. She mentioned consulting with specialists, exploring alternative treatments. Vanessa quickly discouraged such options, citing insurance limitations and my apparent cognitive inability to follow complex therapy regimens. A social worker joined the care team, evaluating my support system and discharge options. She interviewed Vanessa extensively about home setup, available help, financial resources. Vanessa painted a picture of overwhelming burden, describing sleepless nights, mounting medical bills, the impossibility of managing my care alone. The social worker nodded sympathetically, making notes about placement recommendations. The Bitcoin wallet haunted my thoughts. 2 million they couldn't touch without the full password. Terrence had clearly tried accessing it through my phone, but the wallet's security held firm. I'd glimpsed frustrated searches through my email for password hints, recovery phrases, anything to crack the encryption. Their urgency increased daily as other assets proved harder to liquidate than expected. Vanessa attempted new signature sessions during each visit. She'd learned to time them after therapy when exhaustion was genuine. When my hands shook naturally from exertion, the documents evolved from simple authorizations to complex legal transfers, property deeds, investment account changes, business ownership modifications. I sabotaged each attempt with carefully timed tremors and spasms. Dr. Gerard grew puzzled by my inconsistent improvement. Some reflexes showed normal response while others remained impaired. He ordered additional neurological testing concerned about the unusual pattern. Vanessa intercepted the scheduling, pushing appointments weeks into the future, buying time for their plans to solidify. The walker became my prop for mobility deception. I could cross the room unassisted when alone, but performed elaborate struggles during supervised sessions. Maria documented each failure meticulously, her report supporting the narrative of permanent disability. She mentioned a colleague who specialized in severe brain injury rehabilitation. Vanessa noted the name but never followed up. Taryn's visits focused on business extraction. Now he brought contracts requiring president's signature, merger documents, acquisition papers. My company was being carved up and sold piece by piece. I recognized buyer names, competitors who'd circled for years, waiting for weakness. Each signature attempt failed, my hand refusing to form legible letters despite his forceful guidance. Night exercises expanded beyond basic movement. I practiced normal walking patterns. Tested grip strength, worked through complex finger movements. The muscle memory returned quickly when not performing weakness. My body was recovering faster than anyone knew. Strength building in secret while I maintained the facade of helplessness during daylight hours. Vanessa's impatience manifested in rougher handling during her visits. She'd grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise while positioning it for signatures, pressed down on my hand with excessive force. The nurses noticed marks, asked gentle questions about skin sensitivity. Vanessa immediately softened, playing the overwhelmed caregiver who'd been too forceful while trying to help. The facility placement discussions intensified. Vanessa had narrowed choices to 3 locations, all conveniently far from anyone who knew me well. She scheduled tours, met with administrators, negotiated rates. The plan was crystallizing. Move me somewhere isolated, maintain control over visits, complete the asset transfer without interference. Mom's visits became less frequent as Vanessa controlled the narrative. She told my mother that seeing her upset me, that familiar faces caused agitation and confusion. Mom reluctantly agreed to space out visits, trusting Vanessa's judgment as the devoted wife. I watched my last potential ally being systematically removed from reach. Physical plateau meant medication adjustments. New substances were introduced to promote neural recovery, but left me genuinely foggy during peak visiting hours. I suspected Vanessa had influenced the timing, ensuring I was least capable when signatures were needed. The doses wore off by evening, leaving me clear-headed for night practice, but conveniently impaired during business hours. Maria made one last push for aggressive therapy, proposing an intensive program that might break through my apparent limitations. She'd seen similar cases recover with the right approach. Vanessa listened politely, then cited insurance denials, cost concerns, my inability to consent to such treatment. Maria's frustration was palpable, but she couldn't override family decisions. The transfer paperwork arrived from Vanessa's chosen facility. Admission was scheduled for the following week, pending final medical clearance. The place specialized in long-term care for severe brain injuries, minimal rehabilitation focus, visiting hours restricted to weekends only, perfect for their needs, devastating for any recovery hope. Taryn's desperation about the Bitcoin peaked during his next visit. He tried everything. Password combinations on my phone, recovery phrase attempts, even pressing my finger to the screen, hoping for biometric access. Nothing worked. The wallet remained locked. 2 million floating in digital space beyond their reach. His frustration manifested in careless moments, muttering about deadlines and buyer demands. Dr. Gerard performed final evaluations before transfer approval. I failed every cognitive test, fumbled physical assessments, showed minimal improvement since admission. He seemed troubled by the results, but couldn't pinpoint specific inconsistencies. His signature on the transfer orders came reluctantly, with recommendations for continued assessment at the new facility. Vanessa packed my belongings with theatrical care while nurses watched. She folded each item precisely, wiped away manufactured tears, played the heartbroken wife preparing for a difficult transition. The performance was flawless. Even I might have believed it if I hadn't heard her real feelings during the coma. The business dissolution accelerated as transfer approached. Terrence brought final documents, desperate to complete everything before I left the hospital's oversight. My signatures grew worse with each attempt, deliberately illegible scrawls that no court would accept. His patience cracked, showing glimpses of rage quickly suppressed when staff passed by. Maria said goodbye with genuine sadness. Frustrated by her inability to help me progress, she pressed a card into my palm with her personal number, whispering that she'd check on me at the new facility. Vanessa intercepted the card immediately, thanking Maria while ensuring no future contact would occur. Mom was told about the transfer just hours before, preventing any intervention attempts. She arrived as they prepared my transport, tears streaming while Vanessa comforted her with lies about specialized care and better outcomes. I wanted to reach out to signal somehow, but the morning medications had left me genuinely impaired. My planned revelation impossible. The ambulance crew arrived with practice deficiency, transferring me to a gurney while Vanessa supervised every detail. She'd ride along, ensure proper admission, establish herself as primary contact and decision-maker. Terrence would follow in my car using my keys, wearing my father's watch, stepping into my life completely. As they wheeled me toward the elevator, I caught a glimpse of the Bitcoin wallet notification on Taryn's phone screen. Another failed access attempt, another reminder of what they couldn't steal. The elevator doors closed on the hospital that had been my sanctuary, my stage for deception, my preparation ground for whatever came next. The ambulance interior smelled of disinfectant and resignation. Vanessa sat beside me, finally allowing her mask to slip now that we were alone with just the paramedic. Her fingers drummed against her purse where my credit cards rested, calculating how much longer this charade would take. The facility loomed 40 mi away, isolated and secure, perfect for completing their plans without interference. I closed my eyes and felt the vehicle sway through turns, counting distances, memorizing the route. My body stayed limp against the restraints while my mind sharpened with each mile. They thought they were delivering me to permanent captivity. They didn't know I'd been building strength for weeks, that my weakness was performance, that their greed had given me time to prepare. The game was entering its final phase. New location, new challenges, but the same truth underneath. They'd revealed everything while I was supposedly unconscious, shown their true selves when they thought I couldn't see. Now I just had to wait for the right moment to show them exactly how awake I really was. How did they time those medications so perfectly to make him fuzzy right when signatures were needed? The way Maria tried to slip him her card shows she sensed something wasn't right about this whole situation. The facility's entrance loomed through the ambulance windows, a converted mansion surrounded by manicured grounds. Vanessa's hand tightened on her purse as we pulled into the circular drive. The paramedics unloaded my gurney while she hurried ahead to handle admission paperwork. I caught glimpses of other patients through windows, some in wheelchairs, others shuffling with walkers. My future if their plan succeeded. The intake process took hours. Vanessa answered questions about my condition while I lay silent on the examination table. The facility doctor performed basic neurological tests, which I failed spectacularly. My right leg refused commands. My left hand trembled uncontrollably. When asked to follow a pen light, my eyes drifted aimlessly. The doctor made notes about severe impairment, poor prognosis for recovery. They assigned me a private room on the second floor. Far from the main activity areas, Vanessa supervised the orderlies as they transferred me to the narrow bed. She arranged my few belongings in the dresser, hung a photo of us on the wall for appearances. The staff praised her dedication. "Such a devoted wife," they murmured. "So young to face such tragedy." Terrence arrived as they finished settling me in. He wore my father's watch prominently, checking it repeatedly. The facility administrator gave them a tour while I memorized the layout through my peripheral vision. Emergency exits, nurse stations, the medication room, details that might matter later. The evening routine began immediately. A nurse brought pills in a small paper cup, watching as Vanessa helped me swallow them. The medications made genuine fog roll through my mind, thicker than anything at the hospital. I fought to stay alert, but felt myself sinking into chemical haze. Through the blur, I heard Vanessa discussing visiting schedules with staff. "Weekends only," she confirmed, for his own good. Night in the facility felt different from the hospital. Fewer checks, longer stretches of darkness. I waited until the hallway sounds faded, then tested my body. The medications made coordination difficult, but I managed to sit up. My legs responded sluggishly. Standing required gripping the bed rail, but I stayed upright for 30 seconds before collapsing back. Morning brought new staff, new routines. A physical therapist arrived for assessment. Younger than Maria, less experienced, she accepted my failures without question, already adjusting expectations downward based on the intake notes. The session lasted 15 minutes before she declared me too impaired for aggressive therapy. Maintenance exercises only, she decided, just enough to prevent total atrophy. Vanessa arrived during lunch carrying more documents. She'd learned to work around the medication schedule, timing her visits for peak impairment. The papers blurred before my eyes, but I recognized property transfer forms. She guided my hand through signature attempts, growing frustrated when the pen wandered off the line. After multiple failures, she packed the documents away, muttering about trying again tomorrow. The facility's isolation became clear as days passed. No unexpected visitors, no concerned friends dropping by. Vanessa had chosen perfectly. The nearest town was 20 miles away. Public transportation didn't reach this far. Even if Mom wanted to visit outside scheduled hours, the distance made spontaneous trips impossible. Terrence came midweek, agitated about something. He pulled out my phone, jabbing at the Bitcoin wallet app. Another failed password attempt. He grabbed my hand roughly, pressing my thumb to the scanner. Error message. He tried facial recognition, holding the phone to my slack face. Another failure. His frustration erupted in a fist slammed against the wall, quickly covered with an apologetic smile when a nurse peered in. The business dissolution accelerated. Through overhead conversations, I learned they'd sold the office building. Employees had been terminated with minimal severance. 20 years of building a reputation, destroyed in weeks. My biggest client had already signed with a competitor. Others would follow. By the time I could act, there might be nothing left to save. Physical decline became my weapon. I let my left leg weaken genuinely from disuse, making the performance more convincing. The therapist reduced sessions to twice weekly. The facility doctor noted the deterioration, adjusting medications that made thinking even harder. But I'd learned their timing now. The fog lifted predictably between doses, giving me windows of clarity to plan. Vanessa's visits grew shorter but more focused. She brought a lawyer once, a nervous man who avoided eye contact. He explained about conservatorship, about protecting my interests while incapacitated. The irony wasn't lost on me. I drooled slightly while he spoke, letting saliva pool at the corner of my mouth. He looked away, uncomfortable. The papers went unsigned that day. Mom managed one visit, a supervised hour on Saturday afternoon. Vanessa sat between us, controlling the conversation. Mom held my hand, tears streaming as she talked about Dad, about how proud he'd been of the business. She mentioned the watch, asking where it was. Terrence touched his wrist reflexively, claiming I'd asked him to wear it for safekeeping. Mom accepted the lie, too grief-stricken to question. The medication room became my focus during late-night clarity windows. It sat 15 ft from my door, secured with a keypad lock. I watched nurses enter the code during rounds, memorizing the sequence through barely open eyes. 4 digits, simple, but reaching it required more mobility than I currently possessed. I needed to rebuild strength without detection. Terran's desperation peaked during his next visit. He brought a laptop, cables, various devices. He spent hours attempting to hack the Bitcoin wallet, trying recovery tools, brute force programs. Nothing worked. 2 million remained locked away. His muttered curses grew louder. At one point, he grabbed my shoulders, shaking me as if the password might tumble out. A passing orderly intervened, and Terrence quickly played the concerned brother, overwhelmed by grief. The facility administrator called a care conference. Vanessa and Terrence attended while I lay in bed, supposedly oblivious. Through the thin walls, I heard discussions about long-term placement. The doctor recommended transitioning to permanent custodial care. No rehabilitation potential. Cognitive function, too, impaired. Vanessa agreed tearfully, playing her role perfectly. They scheduled the transfer for month's end. My strength building accelerated out of necessity. Each night, I pushed harder. Standing became walking. 3 steps, then 5, then 10. My muscles screamed from the effort, but I persisted. The medication fog was my cover. During the day, I remained convincingly impaired. At night, I reclaimed my body incrementally. Vanessa brought final documents during what she believed would be her last week of visits. Conservatorship papers, power of attorney, asset transfers. Her confidence had grown with each passing day of my apparent deterioration. She barely bothered with pretense, now roughly manipulating my hand to form shaky signatures. Some were passable, others were clearly forged. She didn't seem to care about the distinction anymore. The Bitcoin wallet remained their obsession. Terrence tried everything short of torture to extract the password. He brought cryptocurrency experts who examined my phone, ran diagnostic programs, attempted system exploits. The wallet's security held firm, 2 million taunting them, so close yet completely inaccessible. Their frustration was palpable, beautiful in its intensity. 4 nights before the scheduled transfer, I made my move. The medication wore off around 2 a.m., leaving me clearer than I'd been in weeks. I slipped from bed, legs shaky but functional. The door opened silently. The hallway stretched empty before me. 15 FT to the medication room. I'd watched the code entered dozens of times. My fingers remembered the sequence. Inside, I found what I needed. The same medications they'd been feeding me, but also others. Stimulants for narcoleptic patients. Focus enhancers for ADHD treatment. I pocketed specific doses, careful not to disturb the inventory. The return journey took longer, legs trembling from exertion, but I made it back undetected, collapsing into bed as footsteps approached for the 3:01 a.m. check. The next morning, I palmed my regular medications while swallowing the stimulants instead. The difference was immediate. Clarity flooded through me like cold water. I maintained my act, drooling appropriately, failing to track the nurse's movements. But inside, my mind raced with possibilities. 3 days until transfer. 3 days to execute a plan forming since that first night in the hospital. Vanessa arrived for her final document push. She'd grown careless, discussing my condition openly with Terrence in my presence. The permanent care facility was cheaper, she explained, better for long-term management. They could liquidate the house without oversight once conservatorship was established. Split the proceeds. Start fresh. Maybe somewhere tropical. She laughed at that, the sound sharp in the small room. That night, I used the facility's computer in the empty recreation room. My fingers remembered passwords Vanessa didn't know existed. Secondary email accounts, backup authentication systems. I worked quickly, knowing the overnight staff rarely checked this area. Messages sent to specific contacts, instructions delivered, preparations made. The business might be gutted, but I'd built relationships over 20 years. Some remained loyal despite the chaos. Terrence made a final attempt at the Bitcoin wallet the day before transfer. He brought new equipment, more sophisticated tools. I watched through slitted eyes as he worked, sweat beading on his forehead, stealing pills from the medication room to fake your own condition while they're trying to steal your life. That's some serious fighting fire with pharmaceuticals energy right there. Medical chess at its finest. So close to 2 million, so impossibly far. His failure tasted sweeter than any success I'd ever known. When he left, my father's watch still on his wrist. I knew it would be the last time I'd see it there. The transfer morning arrived gray and drizzling. Vanessa came early, ensuring everything was packed. She supervised the orderlies as they prepared me for transport. Her mask had slipped completely now. No pretense of grief or concern, just efficiency as she signed the final papers. The facility administrator wished her well, praised her strength through such difficulty. Vanessa accepted the compliments with practiced grace. They loaded me into another ambulance for the journey to permanent care. Vanessa rode along, already on her phone with lawyers about the conservatorship hearing. She didn't notice when we passed the exit for the facility, didn't realize the route was wrong until we pulled into a different parking lot entirely. Her confusion was delicious, morphing into alarm as she recognized the building, the private rehabilitation center, the one she'd dismissed as too expensive, too intensive. The doors opened to reveal Maria, my original physical therapist. She'd received my message, made arrangements, used connections Vanessa didn't know existed. The intake staff was prepared, paperwork already filed, emergency court injunction preventing transfer to custodial care, medical reevaluation ordered. Vanessa's protests fell on deaf ears. The papers she'd forged were obvious under scrutiny. The conservatorship attempt collapsed. I let my eyes open fully for the first time in weeks. Met Vanessa's gaze directly as recognition dawned on her face. The performance was over. My voice came out rough from disuse, but clear enough. I told the staff about the medication manipulation at the previous facility, about the forged signatures, about the business assets illegally transferred. Each word landed like a physical blow on Vanessa's composure. Terrence arrived within an hour, summoned by Vanessa's frantic calls. He still wore Dad's watch, but his confidence evaporated when he saw me sitting upright. Speaking clearly to the facility director, I explained about the wallet, how I'd watched him try to steal $2 million, how the password had always been safe because it wasn't what they thought. Not our anniversary, not the street where we'd kissed. Something they'd never guess, because they'd never truly known me. The police arrived as I finished physiotherapy evaluation with Maria. She documented everything meticulously. My rapid improvement once removed from improper medication, the clear evidence of capacity, the forged documents Vanessa had submitted. Financial fraud investigators would follow up. She assured me asset recovery was possible. The business might be salvageable. Vanessa's tears were real now as officers explained her rights. Terrence tried to slip away, but was stopped at the door. Dad's watch was removed from his wrist as evidence. He looked smaller without it diminished. Just another thief caught in the act. They were led away separately, their 8-year conspiracy finally exposed. Maria helped me to the private room, one with windows overlooking a garden. Real rehabilitation would begin tomorrow. Months of hard work ahead. The business needed rebuilding. Trust required repair. But I was awake, truly awake, and ready to reclaim what remained of my life. The Bitcoin wallet notification flashed on my phone that evening. I entered the real password. Not a date or place, but a phrase Dad used to say. Build with your hands, but protect with your head. 2 million safe and accessible. Enough to start over. Enough to rebuild properly. Mom visited that night. Tears of relief replacing grief. She held my hand while I explained everything. The coma, the conspiracy, the slow journey back. She'd suspected something, she admitted. Vanessa's behavior had seemed wrong, but she'd trusted too much. Believed the performance. We sat together until visiting hours ended, planning the future without the people who'd betrayed us. Recovery stretched ahead. Uncertain, but possible. Maria promised aggressive therapy. The lawyers promised asset recovery. The investigators promised justice. But I didn't need promises anymore. I'd learned to save myself, one calculated movement at a time. The game was over. I'd won by refusing to stay unconscious. The facility room was smaller than home, but felt larger than any prison. Tomorrow would bring challenges, legal battles, physical therapy, the slow work of rebuilding. But tonight, I simply breathed freely, watched the rain against the windows, and felt the deep satisfaction of eyes wide open. Vanessa and Terrence had thought me broken beyond repair. They'd learned too late that some damage only makes you stronger. Some prisons teach you how to escape. Some performances prepare you for the truth. I closed my eyes by choice now, resting for tomorrow's work. No more pretending, no more lies, just the slow, steady progress of reclaiming everything they'd tried to steal. The watch would be returned eventually. The business could be rebuilt. Trust would take longer, but that was acceptable. I had time now, all the time I needed. Awake and aware, finally free. Man, that was a blast. Thanks for letting me share all the fun and excitement with you. Can't wait to do it again soon. If you made it to the end, drop a comment. I love reading all your comments.